I'm Andre Huey, and this is the Skn Newsline newscast. St. Kitts and Nevis recorded a third COVID-19 death in the space. Hi, I'm Andre Huey, and welcome to this edition of the Skn Newsline newscast on Channel 95. With only 1 day remaining on the current batch of AstraZeneca vaccine, Premier Maher Brantley has hinted that the sourcing of new vaccines against COVID-19 is progressing well. Skn Newsline's Glenn Bart has more.
Premier Mark Brantley said good progress has been made on sourcing additional vaccines to continue the COVID-19 vaccinations program on St. Kitts and Nevis. Speaking at his press conference on the 29th of June, Premier Brantley encouraged persons to take their first or second dose of the current AstraZeneca vaccine before the batch expires on Wednesday, 30th June. After that date, citizens and residents must wait until the next batch of vaccines arrive in the country. According to the Premier, who is also the Federal Minister with responsibility for foreign affairs, the federal government will make an announcement on the availability of the vaccines, but he indicated that the prospects were very good.
We are going to be administering vaccines until these run out, and we are hopeful that by tomorrow, end of day, that they will all be gone, because people will respond in large numbers to get their vaccine, whether to get their second dose or to get their first dose of these vaccines. Secondly, we are working on getting additional vaccines into the country so that going forward we can have vaccines available. And I won't say more on that because I will leave that for the federal authorities and the Minister of Health over there. I can say, however, that good progress has been made in relation to sourcing vaccines so that we will know that we have additional vaccines to go. I have been engaged on the diplomatic level, and so I know that good efforts have been made and there have been some results. I believe that it's a matter of public knowledge that the President Biden administration in the United States has committed to making vaccines available to the Caribbean and Latin America. And in addition to that, we have other sources that we have tapped into in order to get vaccines as well. And so at some point, an announcement will come in relation to that.
According to medical practitioners, even a single dose provides much more protection against COVID-19 compared with not being vaccinated. However, it is highly recommended that a second dose of the AstraZeneca vaccine is taken to achieve its fullest effect in protecting against severe illness. Glenn Bart reporting for Skn Newsline.
2 Culturama events have been cancelled due to the COVID-19 situation in the Federation. More in this report. The Culturama Secretariat has announced the cancellation of the 2021 Nevis Culturama Festival Miss Culture Swimwear and Mr. Cool contest. In a press release issued Tuesday, the Secretariat said that in the prevailing circumstances, the Nevis Culturama Committee has paid close attention to the effect of the COVID-19 Prevention and Control Act 2020 and the statutory rules and orders which call for all of us to be compliant with the safety measures provided therein. As such, the difficult decision has been made to cancel the event. While we know that this decision comes as a disappointment to the prospective participants, the release added, the Culturama Committee believes that the health and safety of the contestants themselves, the patrons and staff is paramount and essential to preventing the further spread of the COVID-19 virus. The committee said it looks forward to the Miss Culture Swimwear contest and Mr. Cool contest for 2022. In April of this year, it was announced that the Nevis Island administration had given permission for the hosting of Culturama 47. At that time, Mr. Antonio Abernathy-Liburd, the director of the Culturama Secretariat, explained that while there will be several traditional activities, venues have been changed and the number of patrons allowed to attend will be limited. These due to COVID-19 safety measures. I'm Andre Huey reporting for Skn Newsline. When we come back, good news on the COVID-19 situation on Nevis. Elliots Funeral Parlor is the first licensed embalmer in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. We have a friendly and professional staff. At Elliots Funeral Parlor, we offer a wide range of packages from $6,500 homegoing service at chapel, locally made caskets, tailoring of outfit for deceased of your choice, wake overnight with slideshow, funeral, death announcement, obituary, booklets, family pin-ons, memorial books, preparation of funeral arrangements, wreath, fresh and artificial. For further information, call 469-3298, 664-2007 or 660-0186. Elliots Funeral Parlor in Gingerland, Nevis. Dedicated to those we serve. Welcome back. The lone COVID-19 case in Nevis has recovered and the number of persons tested have all returned negative results. More in this report. Nevis appears to be COVID-19 free after the lone positive case was announced 2 weeks ago. Premier Mark Brantley announced at his press conference on Tuesday that the island's 15th case had recovered and that some 40 contacts that were tested in contact tracing tested negative.
I can tell you that from the case that we registered, case number 15 on Nevis, that we would have tested over 60 individuals on that case. I'm sorry, from that case. And that after the CMO would have announced, the Chief Medical Officer, that if you were fully vaxxed, you didn't have to be quarantined. Then obviously some of those persons who that case came into contact with were fully vaccinated. They were still tested, but they weren't quarantined. And so those individuals would not have been quarantined. The others were largely home quarantine, were asked to home quarantine. And they would have now done 2 tests. One at the point when they were identified and one 14 days later. All of those individuals have, as of yesterday, had their second test and all are clear, no COVID. And the one, case number 15, has recovered fully.
According to the Nevis authorities, 708 tests were done on Nevis since the COVID-19 outbreak in the Federation on May 19th, of which 707 returned a negative result. I'm Andre Huey, reporting for Skn Newsline. Opposition and government square off in the National Assembly over claims made by the leader of the parliamentary opposition. Glenn Bart tells us more.
When parliamentarians met in the Skn Nevis National Assembly to discuss the 6-month extension of the COVID-19 related state of emergency, a row erupted when the opposition leader claimed that government had not paid severance to thousands of persons unemployed because of the pandemic. Leader of the opposition, Dr. Denzel Douglas, claimed that only a small number of persons have been paid severance and that government have not explained why.
People who legally are due their severance payments have not yet received them. And there is no good reason that is being advanced by this government. In his own words, the Minister of Finance, only 2,017 people out of 4,000 people have been paid redundancy or severance payments.
Mr. Speaker, again the member for number 6 is being dishonest in the parliament.
Dishonest?
I have never, point of order, Mr. Speaker, we have never had 4,000 applications before the Labour Department for severance.
Who lost their jobs? You're not listening. That is it.
Mr. Speaker, the member for number 6 ought to know, if he would simmer down, he ought to know that not every person who lost a job can make a claim to the severance fund. So you can only deal with those who have made a claim. And at this point, over $35 million has been paid out, the severance fund.
Minister of Labour Wendy Phipps also responded to the Labour-related claims made by members of the parliamentary opposition, describing the claims as inaccurate.
As of today's date, Monday, the 28th of June, 2021, the total number of severance claims received was 2,429, not 4,000. The total number of long service gratuity claims, which is different but still connected, is 59 because it impacts upon the same fund. Because let us not forget that in 2013, when the long service gratuity was put in place, the fund was never capitalized, and as a result of that, persons had to be paid out of the severance payment fund to satisfy their claims made against long service gratuity. The total number of severance payment claims that are pending for 2020 is 20. I repeat, the total number of severance payment claims pending from 2020 are 20 claims. The total number of claims being processed at this particular time is 26. The total number of claims processed to date, 2,324 against 2,429 that were received. The total number of claims, therefore, that have been paid out to date, 2,295 claims. And the total number of claims awaiting payment, 29. And let me just explain what we mean by awaiting payment. It means that we have put in place a three-tiered system of collecting data and verifying data, and then at the same time going the extra step with the audit department to put in place a procedure to ensure that what someone is entitled to is what they are going to get. So that is the state of play. So, Madam Deputy Speaker, I say all of that to say this, that as of today's date, this government has paid out in total $36,641,166.81.
The Minister of Labour said the response has been very good in spite of the small tax base of the country. Glenn Bart reporting for Skn Newsline.
Fisher folks and farmers have the ability to move around to ply their trade even during the lockdown. More in this report. Fisher folks and farmers will be allowed to engage in their trade under the new restrictive measures implemented under the current COVID-19 lockdowns in St. Kitts. Prime Minister Dr. Timothy Harris made the disclosure during his national address on June 25th.
We make a special exception for farmers and fishers to tend their flock and to go fishing, to keep our food supply going during the days of limited operation.
This certainly was a change from last year when the lockdowns were first implemented. Farmers and fisher folks were initially not included under those measures, and adjustments were made to accommodate them. But even then, they were given limited time, which many farmers found did not meet their expectations. Prime Minister Harris announced a complete 24-hour lockdown from 6 p.m. Sunday, June 27th to 5 a.m. Thursday, June 1st. Thursday and Friday are limited days of operation of essential businesses from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. and a return to full lockdown from 6 p.m. Friday, July 2nd to Thursday, July 8th. These measures have been taken to preserve social and physical distancing and minimizing the risk of transmission of the coronavirus. Andre Huey, Skn Newsline. It's the new and improved Skn Newsline Android mobile app. With the Skn Newsline app, you can watch your news reports, the Skn Newsline Newscast, sports, special features, and so much more. You can also send us a WhatsApp or call us directly. Go in the Google Play Store, search Skn Newsline, and download the app today. The Skn Newsline mobile app. News on the go. Welcome back. We turn our attentions now to regional news. Professionals in the medical field in Jamaica are concerned with the government's plans to ease COVID-19 restrictions on July 1st. More from Television Jamaica.
Well, I know many Jamaicans are looking forward to July 1 when the new protocols take effect. But as we have reported, persons in the medical sector are nervous. Now, sources tell me that prior to making the announcement, the government was warned against easing the restrictions at this time, given the challenges being experienced with the vaccine program and the threat of the Delta variant of the coronavirus. I put that question to Health Minister Dr. Christopher Tufton.
I am a part of the cabinet, and therefore I can't separate myself from the cabinet decision, because the cabinet decision is a collective decision. And in cabinet, we discuss, we agree, we disagree, but when decisions are taken, we all work together with those decisions. But as I said, I think the Prime Minister was clear enough to say that the public health, a strict public health recommendation would likely see a maintenance of those restrictions. But there are other considerations that went into the decisions. What we have to do in public health is to outline those risks so that the country is under no illusion. This pandemic is not over, it's still here, and it can get worse.
So, Shamela, in light of the concerns raised against easing restrictions, what is the next step for the ministry?
Well, Herman, Dr. Tufton says the health ministry is now doing an internal assessment and is also putting things in place in the event of a spike in COVID cases.
That preparation is going to involve a series of things. It's going to involve how we prepare the population for the possibility of that surge and the need to review and to pull back on some of the restrictions that have been eased or to reimpose. It involves how you rotate your staff and try to keep your staff motivated. Many of them are tired and fatigued. Address some of the internal issues that you have seen in recent times to ensure that they are motivated, things like salary issues and payment for services. Then preparing the hospitals in terms of beds, in terms of equipment, ventilators, the PPEs, which are important.
There are also questions about resource constraints. The minister admitted that there is a shortage of public health inspectors across the island, but he was quick to point out that the ministry will be getting help from other ministries to man events.
The agencies and ministries. So the Ministry of Local Government, for example, have their own inspection teams, if you will. They vet applications for venues, and part of that vetting also involves whether those some protocols are in place. Ultimately, the public health team will have to play a role there. There is also the idea of hiring additional staff, primarily through local government, that are considered, I think they're termed event wardens, if you will, who will be present at these events and who would monitor the protocols that are in place.
So, Herman, interesting times ahead as the country continues efforts to contain the COVID-19 virus.
Interesting indeed, and we'll continue to monitor those and give you the latest each evening as we do our newscast.
Craft vendors in St. Lucia ready to earn a living again with the scheduled arrival of the first cruise ship in Port Castries since the COVID-19 pandemic. More from HTS TV News in St. Lucia.
Merchants at the Vendors Arcade are hoping for a dramatic increase in activity with the scheduled arrival of the Celebrity Millennium cruise ship on Tuesday, 29th June. In anticipation of the arrivals, the vendors of the craft market, along with Ministry of Tourism and health officials, have fine-tuned measures and protocols to welcome guests.
We have put the layout, we look at the layout of the Vendors Arcade, and we have agreed to put a number of things in place, signage and so on, things about social distancing, checklists and so on in terms of the things that people must do and must not forget to do in terms of the protocols.
The Vendors Arcade will see some restrictions to the flow of foot traffic with a controlled entry and exit path clearly identified.
What you call 7 gates or entrances at the arcade. We are going to allow only 2 to be entrance, one on the Jeremy Street side and the other one on the John Compton Highway. And we will only allow 1 exit. And again, the decision is that people, when the ship is in port, locals will not be allowed to traverse the Vendors Arcade, or not only the arcade but many other facilities that they have certified so far. That's the protocol from the Ministry of Health.
President of the Dry Goods and Craft Vendors Association, Peter Ras Iper Isaac, anticipates pushback from the local population, who may be averse to the restrictions on access to the arcade when cruise ships are back in Port Castries.
I would like the people, the vendors, the general public and everyone, let's cooperate to see how we can get this country open gradually. We've been suffering for too long, especially our vendors. Over 15 months we have been out and not much assistance. The little people had in terms of savings have been depleted. So we are in a situation where we need to get some kind of level of cooperation from everyone to see how we could make this thing work.
Isaac hopes measures to regulate the sector are soon in place to ensure that the various stakeholders benefit from the return of the cruise ship tourism industry.
I'm not sure if it's 400 visitors, if the crew is part of the 400, but 400 for the Celebrity Millennium, the first ship. The next one may be sometime on the 19th of next month, we're hoping. But by that time, we're hoping that we'll put every other thing in place for the other markets, the provision market on that side, / craft, and the craft market as well.
Fully vaccinated tourists vacationing at hotels have already begun visiting attractions across St. Lucia as they roam freely about the island. Soulash Alfred, HCS News Force.
Internationally, vaccine manufacturer the Serum Institute of India has ramped up production of COVID-19 vaccine, which will help ease vaccine shortages in India. CNA TV in Singapore has more.
India's COVID-19 vaccine shortage appears to be easing after a chaotic start to the national immunization program. Inoculations have outpaced new registrations over the last 2 weeks. Many people struggled to book vaccination slots after they were opened up to the country's entire adult population last month. Vaccination centres also had to close because they didn't have supply. But that's changed because of ramped-up production at local vaccine manufacturer, the Serum Institute of India. The company is on course to produce at least 100 million doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine from next month. India aims to immunize all adults by the end of the year. Ishan Garg joins us live now from New Delhi for more. Ishan, more vaccines on the way. Now we hear Moderna has gotten approval.
Absolutely. Moderna's approval is certainly big news for India. For now, it's going to be imported under a commercial license with the Indian pharma maker Cipla, but the government has said that the approval also opens up the path for different types of import as well. We have seen in the past Moderna saying that it's willing to supply vaccines to India under the COVAX facility. So that's another route through which the Moderna vaccine could come to India. Or if they are being given out by countries such as the United States as donations to India, that could be a third route as well. And this is going to be a very important arsenal in India's vaccine India's quiver of vaccines, really, because this particular vaccine, Moderna, has shown impressive results against the Delta variant. But for now, the burden of supply really rests on the Serum Institute of India, which is bulk manufacturing the Oxford AstraZeneca shot. And the supply is going to be bound up, as you pointed out, to 100 million, and compared to where it was just 2 months ago at 64 million, that's going to be a huge bump up. And at the same time, the Indian government is also banking its hopes on 2 more India-made vaccines, one produced by Biological E and another by Zydus Cadila. So all of these vaccines in combination are going to give the Indian government a breadth of choices to supply to beneficiaries. And the hope really is that by the end of the year, all adults will be vaccinated. But experts are saying that while supply may not be a problem down the line, what will be a problem is going to be vaccine hesitancy, especially in rural areas where scientific illiteracy is on the rise. Many people do not trust vaccines. So that's going to be another challenge for the government going forward.
Challenges certainly remain, but at the same time, Ishan, there is hope now that a third wave might be less dangerous than previously thought.
Absolutely. And part of the reason why a third wave might be less dangerous is because the second wave was extremely devastating. The government had said in the past that at least in urban centers, they are seeing some level of infection saturation, which essentially meant that most people couldn't get infected to the virus because they've already been exposed to it once, which on one side meant that the virus would go on to ravage rural areas. But latest data models have shown that because of sparse population in in rural centers, the spread of the virus is not as bad there. And secondly, there's the case for vaccination. Government data suggests that people above the age of 45, almost 50% of them have received at least one dose. People over the age of 65 have also 50% of them have received at least one dose. So in terms of the severity, these are the most vulnerable groups who are now protected to a certain degree from the virus. But of course, the challenge here is going to be protecting people between the ages of 18 and 45, because only 15% in this age group have received vaccine shots. So going forward, experts are saying that third wave might not be as deadly, but of course, the government also needs to look out for the Delta Plus variant, which is supposed to be more transmissible and could have increased severity.
Ishan, thank you for that update. Ishan Garg there in New Delhi.
After nearly 8 months of fighting and displacement, the conflict in Ethiopia's Tigray region has taken a new turn. Last year, the federal government declared victory over the Tigrayan People's Liberation Front after seizing the regional capital, Mekelle. 7 months of conflict followed, in which thousands were killed. Al Jazeera reports.
When Ethiopian government troops took control of the city of Mekelle last year, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed declared victory over the Tigrayan People's Liberation Front. 7 months of conflict followed, thousands have been killed, and then it all changed on Monday when the TPLF took Mekelle back. The government-appointed administration fled and then asked for a ceasefire.
We ask in the name of Tigray and all peace-loving people, the federal government, for a ceasefire based on humanity in such a way that prevents further damage so that it is possible for people to find respite and become part of the solution.
Among the most recent deaths were around 40 people killed in an airstrike last week. The army said those killed were fighters. Survivors said the bomb hit a market. Around the same time, the TPLF began its offensive to retake Mekelle, which is the capital of the Tigray region.
Mekelle is fully under the control of our forces, government forces. And the legitimately elected government of Tigray is back in control of the capital in Tigray.
When Ethiopia held elections last week, Tigray was one of 4 out of the country's 10 regions that didn't vote. The conflict began partly because the elections, due last year, were delayed. Before that, the TPLF had dominated Ethiopia's government and military for nearly 30 years, until Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed took power 3 years ago. A power struggle followed, which erupted into a civil war. The conflicts displaced nearly 2 million people in Tigray. There were widespread reports of attacks on civilians, burning of crops and looting. The UN says that's left 90% of the population in urgent need of food. It said there's already a famine and it's expected to get worse. Doctors Without Borders said 3 of its staff were killed last week. UNICEF says government troops entered its office in Mekelle on Monday and dismantled communications equipment.
We condemn any and all attacks on humanitarian workers and assets and remind again all parties of their obligations under international humanitarian law. All parties must ensure the protection of civilians and that all humanitarian assistance provided by the United Nations is provided according to humanitarian principles.
Much of the conflict has been fought in small towns and villages where rights groups say thousands of civilians have been killed. People are waiting to see if the ceasefire will bring peace and the help they desperately need. Malcolm Webb, Al Jazeera.
In sports in St. Lucia, it was a weekend packed with sporting activity with the easing of COVID-19 related restrictions and protocols. The St. Lucian Athletics Association held its much anticipated National Track and Field Championships with a number of athletes finally getting a taste of competition after a very long layoff. More from HTS News Force in St. Lucia.
Athletic competition was hard to come by during the pandemic. But the St. Lucia Athletics Association was finally able to host its long-awaited National Track and Field Championships at the George Odlum Stadium in Vieux Fort this past weekend. Michael Joseph attends the University of Kansas. The collegiate athlete, who has been struggling with injuries, took home the 400-meter dash. He relished the opportunity to get back out on the track.
How is the preparation so far?
It's been pretty well. Having many injuries for the year. It's good to be back on the track, competing and doing good times.
How is the experience of the season?
The experience is pretty good. Really enjoying it. I'm just trying to get healthy to do as good as I can.
What are your expectations then?
My expectations, well, this year is just to break the national junior record.
What's the way forward? I mean, you're competing against a number of other athletes.
Yeah.
Tell us about it.
Well, today was a good meet, but forward, first this year break the national junior record, continue training, try and take the senior record, and hopefully go to the next Olympics.
The national championships were called off in 2020 as the pandemic raged on last summer. Public Relations Officer of the St. Lucia Athletics Association, Makiba Alcid, is buoyed by the return of competition, with the elite athletes receiving a much-needed workout.
This will be our 4th meet of the year. Between last month and this month, we've had 2 each, and the competition is going well. We prepared our COVID protocols and tested it out during our first couple of meets to be able to host our 2-day event, our first two-day event since the National Junior Championships in 2020. That was March of 2020. We were seeing some great performances here today. We had Michael Joseph of Kansas. He's competed at the University of Kansas, and he's here. He competed in the men's 400 meters and missed our national record by just a little bit. The record is 46.54 seconds. He ran 46.71 seconds. Huge PR for him. So we're expecting great things from him. We're going to see the 100-meter dash, which is going to be an exciting event for our collegiate athletes. The 200 meters with our collegiate athletes in there. We have a couple of other events with our collegiate athletes. We have the javelin with Albert Reynolds. So it's a good competition. We're happy that our affiliates are out here. The clubs came out, they're competing.
Fresh on the election campaign trail in the south, Prime Minister Alan Chasney stopped by the stadium to take in some of the action. He says he is well aware of the time and opportunities lost to the pandemic over the past year. While promoting his sports development policies, Chasney urged more parents to attend the sports meets.
A great feeling. I mean, I'm really hoping that our athletic program will go from strength to strength. We've seen so many of our solutions shining at an international level. And while we're getting some fundamentals here, I think we need to continue to strengthen our program so we can actually see athletes not having to go abroad to get to the international level. I think that the Grosley Academy is a good first step. The new facilities we've just put down in Soufriere and the intention to continue the work that we've started to put some more tracks around the island, and the development and the investment into our club system. One of the things here, and I've heard people lamenting about it, and I have to bring it up, is not enough parents are volunteering their time to help with the administration of these kinds of events. We're not going to compete on a global basis unless we get everybody being involved, and that means parents and athletes now who are no longer competing themselves hopefully will start giving back so we can take our athletes in general and athletics in particular to even a higher level.
The sports meet's last individual event for the day was the men's 200-meter dash open. Joachim Duplessis, HTS News Force.
In the Sports Roundup, we take a look at results in the NBA. The Western Conference Finals takes an interesting turn after the LA Clippers clipped Game 5 to force a Game 6 at home at the Staples Center after a 116-102 victory on Monday night. Paul George scored a playoff career-high 41 points, along with 13 rebounds and 6 assists. Reggie Jackson added 23 points, 5 rebounds, and 3 assists for the Clippers in the victory, while Devin Booker tallied 31 points, 4 rebounds, and 3 assists for the Suns. The Suns lead the best-of-7 series 3-2, with Game 6 taking place on Wednesday, June 30th at 9 p.m. On Tuesday, England defeated Germany 2-0 to qualify for the quarter-final stage of Euro 2020, goals coming from Raheem Sterling and Harry Kane. A shock victory for Switzerland over France in Euro 2020 on Monday. France were one of the favourites to win the tournament, but fell behind in the first half 1-0, only for the star-studded team to storm back in the second half to take a 3-1 lead. But in the dying moments of the match, Switzerland pulled level, scoring 2 goals in a few minutes, forcing the match into overtime and eventually winning 5-4 in penalties. The last penalty kick for France was taken by Kylian Mbappe, which was saved and sending the Swiss in a frenzied celebration. They have moved on to the quarterfinals of the competition. Staying with football, we have results in Copa America. In games played on Monday night, Uruguay edged out Paraguay 1-0, while Argentina showed up for the first time in the tournament with a 4-1 victory against Bolivia. That means the quarterfinal places have been decided. Peru will play Paraguay on Friday at 5 p.m., while Brazil will take on Chile at 8 p.m. Then on Saturday at 6 p.m., Uruguay will play Colombia, while Argentina will battle it out with Ecuador at 9 p.m. This has been the Skn Newsline and Newscast on Channel 95. If you want more on these stories, you can visit our website at www.sknnewsline.com. From all of us here at Skn Newsline, I'm Andre Huey. Thank you for watching.